Peace, Israel, and Yah bless. Thy righteousness is an everlasting righteousness, and thy law is the truth. You know, we've got a lot of things going on within the midst of the family of Israel, many of which we need to work on. And we need to do this as a collective, as a family. I would like to title this segment, A Father's Love, Open Conversations. Once again, I like to title this segment, A Father's Love, Open Conversations. About 3 weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago, I was actually scrolling through my timeline, and for some reason, I clicked on a video. Didn't know what it was about, but when I clicked upon it, it was the Kirk Franklin story. I don't know much about the man. I do know of one of his songs that I've heard on the radio many years ago, and I'm aware of exactly who he is. I don't listen to his music. I've never bought any of his music, but I know who he is. And like I said, I'm familiar with one of his songs. There's a song that he has called Stomp. Some of you may be familiar with that song because it was played often on the radio many years ago. And the whole story was the fact that this man was 50-something years old and did not come to find out who his father was till he was in his mid-50s. I want to say he's about 54 years old. I saw a small segment of it when I did click on it, and it intrigued me to want to go look at the whole thing. So I went and I looked at the whole thing. And I don't know the brother, but my heart felt for him. You know, as Israelites, when one of us show our hind part in the midst of other people and we are present, though we may not know that individual, we are embarrassed for him and we're embarrassed by him. And it is no different when it comes to feeling each other's pain. I don't know the brother, but when I looked at the story, I felt for him. I hurt for him. And it's amazing because you would think that that sort of thing just kind of happens in a vacuum. But there's a person that I know that this very same thing or similar to it has happened to them. They did not find out who their father was until they were in their mid-50s. But the mother knew exactly who the father was, but the child didn't. And the man himself didn't know that he had a son. And this man was not informed until 53 or 54 years after the fact. And then the son was forced to try to pick up the pieces to try to learn and figure out who his father is and build some kind of relationship. It is unfair and it is unjust. It's just not the right thing to do. And it causes more damage than one can imagine. With the Kirk Franklin story, this man did not find out who his biological father was until there were rumors being spread around that he looked like a certain man. His hands, his build, his ears, etc. As you all know, if you've been at this channel for any time, your testicles, your phallus, these are your reproductive organs because they produce a replica of you. You're going to look like your children. Unless you've mixed your seed or something, then they're going to look like just about anybody. But for the most part, your son looks like you because your son is you. He is you in the next generation. So you could look at this man. You could tell that this man is built like him. You know, you could see the features of him. He's just an older man. And apparently a well-respected and caring man. So this brother missed out on knowing who this man was. And, you know, it's a sad story to see one of our brothers have to go through this when there was a man that was capable and is a good person that would have been willing to raise his son. Many of our men get a bad rap for not taking care of their children. We've got a couple of bums out here. Every group of people does, but we're not discussing everyone else. We're discussing us. We've got a couple of bums, most certainly, but there's many of our men who will fight tooth and nail to raise their own children and be a part of their lives. And there are some of our women that will do all that they can to ensure that that does not happen, that will try to take a man child in particularly, will try to take a man's son away from him to go raise him in another state, either to raise him by herself or to have another man raise him when his father is willing, ready, and capable of doing that job. These are things that we should not do, for it tears us apart. The Most High did drive a wedge in the midst of our families. This is part of that fire that's been in the midst of us, to where this problem between a man and his brother, a man and his son, a man and his daughter, a man, a woman and her daughter, we have internal issues. There's no peace within our families. But for us to have peace within our families, we are to turn to the Most High's laws, statutes, judgments, and precepts. Some of our brothers, especially some of our military brothers, some of them have had children unbeknownst to them with women from other nations. Now, I will discuss that later as it pertains to my wife and how this came about. But before I get there, after I've seen that Kirk Franklin episode, documentary, or what you may want to call it, whatever you may want to call it, I was playing golf a few days later, and I'm in the car with one of my buddies, and I asked him, I said, man, have you seen the Kirk Franklin story? He said, no, I haven't. What's it about? And I began to give him the gist of what it was about. And he said, yeah, I know where he's coming from. I said, what do you mean? He said, man, I just met my dad a couple of years ago. I said, what? He said, yeah. He said, I saw him all the time. He cuts my hair. We're pretty cool. He said, I went, rang his doorbell. He said, the man opened up the door and told him, come on in. Whatever it is you got to say to me, he said, I've been waiting for this day all my life. Whatever it is you've got to say to me, I've got no rebuttal for it. Go ahead and lay it on me. So the man knew that that was his son. Why it took so long for him to find out. And this fella's, I'm 50. So this fella's a few years older than me. And he pretty much said that he could never have a relationship, a normal father and son relationship with this man. And he doesn't like that and didn't appreciate that. So these are two instances where I'm seeing that this type of thing, I would hate to think that this is an everyday occurrence. But I know of two people that this has happened to where they found out who their fathers were in their 50s. Now, as it pertains to my wife is a German national. Her father's one of us, an American man from Richmond, Virginia, brother, Israelite, and her mother is a German national. Now, my wife clearly knew who this man was. She had a picture of her father, she knew his name, and she knew exactly where he lived, what state he lived in. Now, at 22 years old, when she came over here, back in those days, you had 411, where you can just get directly through to someone. I called 411, asked to be patched through to Richmond, Virginia, and asked for this man by name, and the phone began to ring. And he picked up the phone. And granted, she has never seen him. He was aware that he had a daughter. He had sent one box and $20 when she was a child. And so I called this man and I asked him, hello. He answered. I said, are you Mr. Such and Such? He said, I am. I said, have you been stationed XYZ place? He said, I have. He said, what is this concerning? I said, well, I don't know how to tell you this, but I'm married to your daughter. And then he began with, oh, praise the Lord and all this. Meanwhile, I'm rolling my eyes thinking, man, come on now, really? Because I knew that he had a child. But yet, after that box and $20, he never made any attempt to contact her, to care for her, or to wonder about her well-being. Meanwhile, she is being raised in Germany getting called all kind of N-words, and going through hell like anyone who is black in Germany and raised in that culture understands what they have to go through there. It is rough on them. And had he done his part, there are some traumas that she would have not had to endure had he been present. So I have to respect him for this, for he's no longer here. He passed away last year. I respect him for one thing. The man could have said, when I called him, he could have said, "It's not me. I don't know what you're talking about. Click." But he didn't do that. Of course, he started to praise the Lord and all this other stuff. And that pretty much just, I had to roll my eyes on that because that irritated me more than anything else. Because I felt it was disingenuous. That's just my feeling. But once again, I have to respect the fact that he could have said, "I don't know what you're talking about and it's not me." But the man did not do that. Furthermore, 2 weeks later, he came up and we met in Charlotte, North Carolina. That way he can meet his daughter for the very first time. And the entire family came. When I'm telling you they came deep and they rolled deep, there was any brothers coming out of cars. I was thinking that's the last dude coming out of that car. Nope, 2 or 3 more came out. I mean, the family rolled deep to meet her and to greet her. And he brought 2 dozen roses, and the brother hugged me so hard and was holding on to me. I was like, "Man, you about to break my ribs. What you doing?" Right? So he was really genuine in his approach as it pertains to that. And my wife is now 50. And so she was able to have her father in her life for like 24 years after the fact, or something close, 24, 25 years, because she didn't meet this man until she was 23 years old. But what he did not do, he did not reject her, and the family embraced her. And that certainly filled a hole and a void in her life that she had not known. So our people need to clearly understand. Now, first of all, our men are our leaders. We are to be aware that when we do have children, we're to take care of them. There's nothing more damaging, I think, than a young man not knowing who his father is. And there's many of our men who would really like to be a part of their father's lives, or their child's life, their son's lives, and the mothers are not allowing them to do it. Now, if we're dealing with a bum, that's a different ballgame. Sometimes a man may be more harmful to his son, and the mother may have to protect that son from a father that's harmful. This is a matter all entirely different. However, we do have men out here who will do their best to raise their children and to be a part of their lives. And there are women that will not allow them to be a father to their own children. And this is a shame. We must raise our families, and a child needs both parents. And somehow we need to start working these things out to where we will have to be honest with our children. We know clearly that there's a fire in the midst of the house of Israel, to where, a man is against his brother. A man is against his son. The son is against the father, etc., etc. We understand these things, and we understand why these things have taken place and why they continue to take place. But as we turn to Torah and we understand that my seed is nothing but me in the next generation, I'm to arm myself, meaning my child, with all the necessary information, especially as it pertains to this law and how they must conduct themselves. That way, when you drop dead, you have left a better you, because there's no coming back after this. And if you feel that there is, I'm not mad at you. But the book that I read and study, this is it. And that's why you will see in Chronicles and in Numbers, you will see generation after generation. That person dies, and then you'll hear of their seed after them. They die, then you hear of their seed after them. So we are to protect our seed. We are to care for them. There is no role more important than being a parent. And at times, we can arm our children with all the necessary information by which to succeed. And yet, these children will go ahead and do something that's just absolutely off the charts. I remember when I was younger, in my early 20s, 22, 23, 24, at my job, the men that were 50 and 60 years old would tell me some of the stunts that their children would pull. And in my younger years, I'm young, I'm 22, 23 years old. I'm like, no, he didn't do that, did he? No, she didn't do that, did she? Really? And I'm laughing because some of it is funny. And some of it was not funny because the mistakes that they were making were costing their parents money, costing them time, etc., etc., etc. And most of this was a case of rebellion. And certainly, understanding that we're Israel, it now comes full circle because I'm the 50-year-old now. And I'm seeing where that, yeah, though I walk in the law, my kid doesn't walk in the law like I do. And so therefore, when she's getting her head busted, it affects my house, it affects me. So there's many of us who have turned to the law, statutes, judgments, and precepts, and our children have not. And some of them flat out will not. And those who have children that have turned to the Most High with their whole heart and their whole soul, that has got to be one of the most pleasing things to that parent. And if you are a parent that's walking in the law and your child is doing the same, I'm glad to hear that. And I hope that they continue to do it because it takes us returning us and our children because they are our replicas. They are the next generation. We can't do it, and then they don't. Then the curses continue on. So we're seeing clearly to where this stuff doesn't happen in a vacuum. We have bad parents out here, both male and female. However, it is time for us to try to mend these fences. It's time for us to return back onto the Most High's law, statutes, judgments, precepts. And as we mend fences with him and turn to him, then he will make our hearts tender towards each other. The man to his wife, the man to his daughter, the man to his son, and vice versa, because we will have the law before us. So it's imperative that we turn to it, that we may be tender-hearted, because right now we've got a stony heart. And because of that, we have all these many issues in the midst of us. Brother Kirk Franklin, as much success as he has had in the music industry, by looking at a documentary, when you listen to him, you can tell that he is hurt. And no amount of money can fix that hurt. There's no peace in his heart and mind. And you can tell. And this whole thing is disturbing unto him. But once again, to have peace, you must have the law before you. That's where you will find peace. That is the sanctuary that's been extended onto us, that we may hide and find some protection. So I've made a few videos. I made a video not too long ago speaking as it pertains to let the nations have their gods. And so therefore, based on what one believes or what one reads, that tends to be along the lines by which they may follow. So to that brother, he's been serving JC. And as you know, if you're an Israelite, you understand clearly that you are to serve the God of Israel and no other God from anywhere else. We understand this clearly. And as far as I can see, this man is an Israelite. And he is, in spite of his success, the money that he has and the fame, the notoriety, does not shield him from these curses. None of us are shielded from them. We're all in captivity. It's just that some of us are going to get hit harder than others. That's all. But we're all going to have to pay. And we all have been paying in these many lands. Some are going to pay a stiffer penalty than others because some are much more rebellious than others. So for that man, I would hope that he would find some peace. And another way of me saying that is that I hope that he will find the Most High's laws, statutes, judgments, and precepts. because many of the songs that he's been making has been sang to and has been praising the idol of Christianity. And he may not know that, but maybe in time he may find this out and seek after the Most High's law, statutes, judgments, and precepts, and therein he may find some peace. So we are to be respectful of each other, and even if we have children and you may not agree with that individual, or you may have had a child with, somehow for the sake of the child and for the betterment of the child, both the psychological health, mental health, etc., it's important that we maintain a relationship with some level of respect as we deal with each other and as we deal with the children, because our children are watching our every move, and we need to present or put forth our best foot forward when dealing with our children, especially as it pertains to respecting the other parent. So the brother he's hurt because his mother refused to admit that this man is his father. And there have been 2 DNA tests, and they both came back proving that yes, this man is Kirk's father. And yet she continued to deny and said, I want to say she said something pertaining to swearing on a grave or something, that it's not, this is not true, and she wanted to get to the bottom of it and all of that. So sometimes some of us, we can double down on some things that's just not right. And I would think that his wound would at least begin to heal if he could at least get some what he would think to be the truth. But sometimes some people have no truth in them, and they will refuse to tell you anything that would bring comfort onto you or bring closure onto you. So I feel for the brother, and I can only hope that he would find the Most High, turn to the Most High with his whole heart, his whole soul, and turn to that law, and therein that he may find some peace. Now, I've had some open conversations as it deals with some of our people. There's a brother that I know, he's roughly about 62 years old. Him and I are very close. We normally would go out to eat, sit down, and discuss the many things that's happening within this nation, you know, geopolitical type things that's going on within the earth, etc. He is by no means, this man is an Israelite, straight brother, squared away brother, retired military man. He's got his ducks in a row. Very respectful man, carries himself like a grown man should. And he travels around, his job requires him traveling around the United States. So he called me one time, and he was absolutely, this is a mild-mannered and a calm brother, level-headed. The man is about his business. So he called me. And he said, man, I've been meaning to call you. I said, yeah, brother, I saw you calling. I'm reaching out to you. What's going on? He said, man, ends ain't, you know what I mean by that. I said, oh, brother, what do you mean? What's going on? And he began to tell me a story that transpired with him, to where he was delivering some goods to a particular business. Now, his job is not to touch the freight. But there was a brother working the front desk, and it was his job to take the freight out. So the friend of mine, he said, okay, I see this brother's got to take this freight out. He said, look, normally I don't touch this thing, but I'm going to help you out. So my friend helped the other Israelite take out the freight out of the truck, right out of the van. And then once the freight was removed and he helped this brother, he said the brother got back behind the desk and started acting totally brand new. Because my friend was about to get a room at this particular establishment. And the brother, who he had just helped, and he's not even supposed to touch this stuff, he just helped this brother. The brother got behind the desk and started acting like he didn't even know him. Like this man didn't just assist me. And he proceeded to charge my friend the full price for a stay at this particular facility. And then the Caucasian lady who was present came up and said, no, this man has done a good job for us and he has helped us. Go ahead and give him this room at no charge. And I'm telling you the nice version of it, but when he called me, he was screaming. And I'm telling you, this is a level-headed brother. He said he didn't even rest well that night when it happened, because he said, I was just about to give up. But while he's talking to me, you know, I was about to interject. He said, no, you listen to me, because you always advocating for us. You always advocating for them. And I said, man, well, we are the men of this nation. If we don't have the belief that we will do better, if starting with ourselves, then we're all just going to give up. He said, I'm about to give up because I'm tired of these jokers. I'm seeing this everywhere I go. Everywhere I go, I've got such and such standing in the way. So through his experience or his experiences, it's been as though his own people are doing their best to make life tough for him. In instances where they can be helpful to him, they are not helping him. It is frustrating to him because when we speak, I'm always giving the positive side of everything. I understand there's a negative side, but I understand why. I understand why that there's contention between brother and brother. He doesn't understand those dynamics as it pertains to our curses. So it frustrates him because he can't understand why this is happening. And I do believe that any of our people, regardless of where we are in the diaspora, when you go to places and you see that our people are always A, at each other's throats, or B, at the bottom of the barrel, struggling. No matter where you go, we have the same story of struggle, of hardship, of strife, whether it be internally with each other or externally with people of the other nations. And it almost seems as if we cannot get ahead or get a fair shake. And I can understand and see how this can be very frustrating for anyone to try to figure out, why is it everywhere that I go, I see my people in this terrible state? And people are seeking for answers, wondering why this is, and they have no clue. But the law and the prophets and the curses that was handed out onto our people, when you read it, then you understand, okay, I know now why this is happening. So therefore, when I see our brothers who have no respect for another man, doesn't know how to talk to another brother with some kind of respect, the way they speak, the words they use, and the tone of their voice is that of contention, is that of flat out disrespect, to where it would cause problems. But many of our men have no self-respect, let alone the respect for another man, because many of our men don't know who their fathers are and have a disdain for any man that's going to try to stand up and try to lead them in some cases. Not all of our men, but some of our men suffer from this. And so therefore they have a disdain for another man that looks like them. Don't trust them, flat out don't like them, and will make life tough for them. So these are some of the things that we need to mend with each other. And this can start simply with how we interact with each other, especially as grown men. If I'm addressing a grown man, I deal with him differently. If I'm addressing a 25-year-old or a 22-year-old, I deal with him differently, both respectfully, because I understand that if you want problems with a man, all you have to do is come to him disrespectful in your tone or your words. And so we have to really understand as men that we have to really deal with each other delicately. This becomes very easy once we understand that we are the Most High's people, and this man over here is an apple. He is an apple of the Most High's eye. This is a man of the living God. This is a son of the living God. This is a daughter of the living God. These are God's people. And not because I am one of them, that doesn't give me the ability to abuse them verbally or otherwise. So in open conversations, dealing with my friend, my brother, when he called me and he was yelling, he was upset, he was hurt, and he was ready to just throw in the towel because in his words, you ends ain't blap. You know, you can fill in the words. And I had to kind of reel him in. But I'm glad that he has someone like myself to call and we can talk about these things, because it is quite frustrating when a brother at every turn seems or feels as though other brothers that look like him are sticking stumbling blocks in his path. It builds resentment towards your own people. And I made it plain to him. Don't think that you're going to just try to divorce yourself from your own people, because once you get over there in the midst of these other people, they're always going to remind you that you're no different from the rest of them or from the rest of us. And for him, I reminded him not to ever think that somehow he is somehow separate or above his own people. For his enemies will remind him that you are just like the rest of them in our eyes. And many of our people who have done this thing, who have felt that they can divorce themselves from the nation of their belonging and cross over to the other side because they feel as though they are safer in the spaces of their enemies. Their enemies will always remind them exactly who they are. We see you just like we see the rest of them. And that can be a harmful thing and a hurtful thing for many of our people to experience, especially those who've got all the degrees and they've got all these accolades, and they step into this corporate environment where they may be the only one present, and then all of a sudden they realize that your degrees and whatever else you've got going on in the midst of your enemies, they see you like the rest of your own people, and you cannot separate yourself from your people, nor can you raise yourself above the circumstances of your people. So it's going to take us having some respect for each other, talking to each other with respect, to where we can disagree respectfully, to where those who are listening to these conversations can easily say, you know, these two brothers, they may not see the eye to eye on this particular thing, but I understand his viewpoint and I understand his viewpoint. And they have engaged in dialogue, though they disagree, and it has been done in a respectful manner that there is no damage done to our nation. And what I mean by that is this. Normally we're sitting down at Israelite assembles, sit down with the brothers, Brother Hank, Brother Benaiah, and sit down with Brother Dave, Brother Delvin. We sit down and we have good conversations. Now, Brother Dave and I does not see eye to eye on some things, but Brother Dave and I are not going to get up in front of the people and do anything that's going to cause the people's heart to faint and going to cause them to have doubts. We have got to get to where we sit down as men, that our women, our children, and other men who are listening, that they may be strengthened by the words that we speak, that they may be encouraged by our interaction, it being positive. We've got enough bickering and fighting with the very people that we are around every day, face to face. It's a disheartening thing when our people are aware of all the strife that they're dealing with the very people that look like them day to day. And then they get online with some men who are supposed to be positive, with some men who are supposed to be possibly raising the nation, teaching the law, statutes, judgments, and precepts of the Most High. And these men up here arguing like 15-year-old boys. And then the insults come and everything else comes with that. And then it causes the people's heart to faint. Then all of a sudden they kind of get the feeling that there's no hope for us, because the men that's supposed to lead us, they can't see eye to eye. They can't get along. They can't show each other any respect. So I say this to our men, and I say this to our women. And I've done a segment similar to this in times past. Be mindful of your words against your brother. Be mindful of your words against your sister. Be mindful of your words against your sons and your daughters. Words are impactful. People do not forget the positive things that you tell them, nor the negative things that you tell them. And you never know what a person may be going through from day to day. So, if at all possible, be mindful of your words, that they may be uplifting for those who may hear it. We are to be honest with our children. If you have a child, that child should know his father. Do not deny him the opportunity to know who his father is, or to know who his mother is. For whether that individual parent is good or bad, that child will learn from it. And a whole lot of resentment can be formed when you deny them the opportunity to know exactly who their parent really and truly is. So we have some work to do as a family. And I think they were actually on the right track, because many of the things that we would not dare discuss in an open forum and bringing these things to light, we are now doing this. The truth is coming out. We're seeing who the unrighteous people are in the midst of us. We're seeing who the liars are. Everything is coming out. So there's no hiding place for anyone. The law is light. And when the light shines, everyone can be seen. So let's continue to put our best foot forward. Let's continue to encourage each other, to speak to each other with respect. And as it pertains to our children, let's raise them as parents, as good parents, and let's raise them as a family. All hands on deck, because us returning back onto this law by ourselves will not do it. The Most High said, us and our children. He has made a covenant with this family perpetually through the generations. So you can't just do it. We all can't just do it right now. And then the next generation, our children decide, well, they're not going to do this law. Then this thing starts all over again. So once again, Israel, be mindful. And this message goes out to the children of Israel, as well as the stranger that is of a contrite spirit. We are to care for our children. Our children, they are nothing but us in the next generation. And if you can't care for your own self, you can't possibly expect someone else to care for you. Peace, Israel, and Yah bless. Thy righteousness is an everlasting righteousness, and thy law is the truth. Do not allow a child to grow up with that void of not knowing who their parents are, when that parent is right there ready and available and willing to raise their own child. Peace, and Yah bless.